Forensic Science Lecture 17-3 Automated Firearms Search Systems and Serial Number Restoration. Computerized imaging made storage of bullet and cartridge surface characteristics possible. Early systems, however, were confusing and inefficient starting in the early 1990s, but the FBI developed what's known as DrugFire, which emphasized unique markings on cartridge cases. And then the ATF developed IBIS, Integrated Ballistic Identification System, which identified the markings on both the expended bullets and the cartridge casings. But ultimately, the automated systems were made in a manner that was analogous to the automated fingerprint systems. In other words, similar to the automated fingerprint systems and files. But by 1999, the FBI and ATF joined to form the database NIBN, or National Integrated Ballistic Information Network. And this incorporates both the drug-free and the IBIS systems. The ATF is responsible for the system site, but the FBI is responsible for communication networks. There are more than 200 law enforcement agencies worldwide that use the NIBIN, and it connects more than 28,000 bullets and casings to more than one crime. Prior to computerized technology, the process of comparison would have taken years, and it may not have been possible to actually link two items. But today, it can be done within days, weeks even. The NIBIN services only as a screening tool, however. It's the job of the fire examiner to make a final comparison using traditional methods. What the NIBIN does is it can run hundreds of bullets or casings to narrow down that number, very much like the fingerprint system. One factor that has come into more and more need of criminalists is serial number restoration. Many manufactured items are impressed with the serial number, and this is for ID. But criminals are trying to remove these so that they cannot be traced, and they can do this by grinding, rifling, or punching off the serial numbers, hoping that the gun is not going to be traceable. But the way that serial numbers work is that serial numbers are stamped into the metal body or the frame or a plate with a hard die. And so these numbers are forced in. And so as the force is applied, each digit sinks into the metal at a specific depth. The reason why numbers can be restored is because the strain in the metal is permanent and it extends below the actual number. So when they are, grinding off that number, they're grinding off what they can see, not what is underneath. And so when an etching agent is applied, the strained area dissolves faster than the unaltered material, which then brings up what was actually there to begin with, which is that serial number. Before the process can begin, though, the surface needs to be clean and polished, almost to a mirror-like finish, to remove any sort of dirt or oils that may be on it. The region is then applied with a swab to reveal the number. Region of choice is going to depend on the type of metal that they're trying to bring that serial number out in. Common regions for steel, which is what a lot of guns are made out of, is a solution of hydrochloric acid, copper chloride, and water. But when we're looking at collecting and preserving firearm evidence, firearms need to be collected by holding the weapon at the edge of the trigger guard or checkered portion of the hand the handle. Usually these areas don't retain prints, and so this is why it tends to be okay. All precautions have to be taken in order to prevent any accidental discharge of a loaded weapon, so it's necessary to unload the weapon. So a recording must be taken of all details before unloading. If it's a revolver, the chamber position needs to be indicated. Then each round should be then placed into a separate box or bag. If it's an automatic weapon, then the magazine is removed and checked for prints. Then the chamber is emptied. But when you see on TV where the gun is picked up by its barrel with a pencil or stick, this is completely incorrect. And the reason why is it can disrupt the powder deposits that may be in the muzzle. Rust or dirt lodged in the barrel may be disrupted, which then would affect the test fires, and it may alter any striations that are within the barrel that would create the same markings in the test file. Some other recordings that need to be taken: the position of the handle and the safety, or hammer, and the safety, location of all fired and unfired ammunitions, and then if it's a revolver, the chamber position needs to be indicated by a scratch mark on the cylinder. And then identification marks is usually a tag on the trigger guard. And then it is packaged and sent off to the lab. Evidence must be marked for identification, and chain of custody has to be established as always. Recovery of the weapon from water is a little bit different. There needs to be no efforts to dry or clean the weapon, and this is because that can cause rusting once it starts to hit the oxygen. And so it needs to be placed into a container with enough water to keep submerged, again preventing any of the rust from forming during transfer. And then the identification mark is usually a tag, again, on the trigger guard for all weapons. When collecting and preserving the ammunition, investigators must note each location of the shell casings recovered from either semi-automatic or automatic weapons. Any recovered wads from shotguns need to be packaged and sent to the lab as well. Precaution needs to be taken to protect bullets and cartridges for individual and class markings, and accidental scratching can destroy valuable evidence, so it needs to make sure that it's packaged properly. Bullets, cartridge casings, and discharge shells should be placed in containers appropriately marked. Bullets need to be wrapped in tissue paper before placing in a pillbox or envelope for transport. This way it prevents them from moving around and becoming damaged. The reason why the location of the shell casings need to be marked is because it can establish a relationship between the suspect and the victim, the movement that took place. Shotgun wads and the composition may reveal the type of ammunition or the gauge of the shotgun that was used. So all of this information is key in the investigation and needs to be preserved properly. If we're looking for gunpowder deposits, clothing must be carefully preserved to prevent any damage or disruption of the powder residue around the bullet hole. All wet clothes must be air dried out of direct sunlight and then carefully folded to not, again, disturb the area where the bullet hole is, and then, of course, packaged separately. This concludes lecture 17-3. There's a quiz next class.